Boom! What's up, you guys? So here we are, the Protector Nation podcast. Protector Nation podcast has been going for a few years, and this podcast is all about the best people we've had. Not the best, they're all amazing, but some amazing moments we've had with some of the best protectors in the world. Really just talking about what it is to be a protector, what it takes to be a protector, and educating you guys on the things that each of them bring to being a better protector. This podcast has been awesome because it's really just been for everyone out there in the world with the mission to make the world a safer place by helping good people to be more willing, capable, and prepared. So for this season 1 podcast, we're going all the way back to the beginning to some of our most, just kind of the most watched episodes, the most popular episodes, and we're cherry picking some of those moments in those episodes and bringing it to you as the Reader's Digest of the episode. So for Protector Nation podcast, here we go. Season 1 recap. Here go the cliff notes. If you're not watching this on YouTube, I highly recommend you go check it out on YouTube. It's going to be a great one to watch. More to come. Enjoy the show. Let's go.
I originally was exposed to your brand through your book, When Violence is the Answer. And as a protector, man, if I could make that book into a meal and force every civilian I know to eat it and stand over and be you need this information, that's what I would have done. You know what I'm saying? I mean, that was a beautiful piece of work.
It's funny too, because, violence, using the term violence,
it's a buzzword.
It hurt my, it kept me off of bestseller lists and all that kind of stuff. People just are very uncomfortable with the term. And that's specifically why I used it, because I think when you use imprecise terms like fight, fight's a really dodgy term because, you can fight with your buddy, you can fight with your boss, you can fight with your wife, and those things all mean different things. But when we say violence, we all understand, this is where the physical plane's been crossed. And, what do I do? Because there's very little good information about that, situation. What do you do when you're facing literally even grievous bodily harm? Had you a choice, you would talk your way out of it. Didn't do that. You can't leave now. It's going to happen. And usually when we get to that point, it used to be that people would always say, well, and I'm talking law enforcement, military operators too, when they get to that level of the force continuum or the rules of engagement, when you got to, weapons free, officers able to fight or operators able to fight for their life.
Yeah.
They would basically say, do whatever it takes, ... Yeah. So when you need the most specific information, in the most extreme circumstances, there's very little good information. And I always found it interesting because, somebody like yourself, it resonates with new people, people new to the subject. What was really rewarding was guys like you and other guys that reached out to me and just said, man, you just put it in a way that really made a lot of sense. And I'm going to use that. And I encourage everybody. I mean, listen, none of us have a patent on violence. It's as old as, it's as old as, human race. We all have different ways of expressing it. And if my communication style or my principles and the way I talk about it is helpful to somebody, great. Because I can't wait to see what people do with where we're at right now with, I have one more book that's going to be coming out in another year. And that's probably going to be my last, my last information on that subject. Yeah, that's probably going to be it. And then what's interesting about that and what's exciting about that is I want to see what the next generation is going to do with that information. Where are they going to take it, Because I've had a great career and I'm not retiring or anything yet right now. But what's interesting is I think we have a lot of great young guys coming up who are eager to, take over and keep charging forward, helping people out. So, if I can be a small part of getting them to think differently about the subject, that's great. And I really appreciate the feedback that you just gave me on that because it's nice to hear that. We define injury to the human body as a decrement of function. And that's it, meaning I could care less whether the person feels pain. Right. Because pain is just an arbiter. It's horrible. Everybody has different levels.
And you can fight through it.
Some people, you bend their finger back and they'll capitulate. Other guys, you can break all 5 of their fingers and they'll keep coming at you.
They're bringing it, yeah.
It's not really, now he won't be able to grab, with that hand, but there's still other things. What you really have, when your life's on the line, you want to make sure that objectively what you've done to the human body. Say if a radiologist looked at it, he said, I don't care what this guy's feeling, that's not going to work.
Yeah.
You know, that's there. And that's the goal behind it. And so with injury, you're either going after either the structure of the human body or a sensory system of the human body, and you're shutting it down. You're either shutting it down temporarily for while you're in the engagement, or it can be permanent damage, meaning you could strike somebody to the solar plexus, get a really great result out of that. But all things being equal, as long as the person doesn't have, pre-existing conditions, they're going to recover from that. You know, they'll be fine. Whereas that same strike to say the throat, you're going to crush the cartilage and you're going to asphyxiate the person within, 3 to 5 minutes if he doesn't get medical attention. So the idea with injury is what you want to do is you want to put enough trauma in the human body that you trigger an autonomic reflex, a spinal reflex reaction. And all that is we've all experienced it. If you touch a hot surface, your hand immediately comes off. It's not like you keep it on the stove and go, oh, wow, it's burning my hand, I better pull it off. Meaning the brain doesn't consciously do that. What happens is body goes into action. There's afferent nervous system gives stimulus. And when the stimulus is great enough, it overrides the brain. As the stimulus is coming up the spine to tell the brain what's going on, another immediately gets sent down saying, hey, get that off it now. And you come off. Now, during that time of you're reacting to the trauma, your brain is out of the equation, meaning no matter what you want to do, you have to respond to that trauma. And so what we did early on, this is like the big thing that changed up when we were training operators, was the idea of injury to the human body takes the other person's ability out of question. You're not competing anymore, because you don't want to find out how good somebody is, because they will show you. I don't want any of my people to compete.
We don't want to fight. We want to stop the fight.
and I got to be clear on this too, because I live in Vegas. I have tons of buddies literally that not only work for the UFC. I know a lot of the fighters, the friends.
It's their ecosystem.
Man, nobody is a bigger combat sport, fan than me. I love it. It's awesome. So I just want to make sure that everybody understands. It's just combat sport has a very different goal. Right. And the idea behind combat sport, I mean, last time I looked at the rules, there were 31 rules to the UFC. 27 of those rules prohibited, direct injury to the human body.
Right.
So the only way you can gamify violence, which is what, those contests are, is if you take out direct injury.
It's safe enough.
Well, because it has no place.
Yeah.
It really has no place. My goal is not to maim, cripple, or kill my opponent. I want to better him with my skill set, and I want him to be able to compete again, and the end of it. And it's interesting, like where I had my training facility here in Vegas, I was right across from the top MMA gym my buddy owned. And I used to go there. They had a great workout place. They had a great, training place in addition to, training MMA. So I'd go there, I'd lift, I'd hang out with the guys, I'd do some training. And man, it was the most positive place. I mean, they played incredible music. You got to watch these world-class athletes training for a fight coming up. They were so positively like helping each other out, picking each other up, bro hugging each other. It was cool. It was awesome. It's exactly what you'd expect out of a sport,
Yeah.
If you went across the street to my place and we had a training going on, there's no music. It's silent. Nobody's talking to anybody. It's just, a body would hit the ground every so often. And that's it, because that's the idea. There's social, which we all are extremely comfortable with. And then there's the asocial, which is the predator's world.
Yes.
And if I can if I can delineate for my clients the difference between asocial aggression, not violence. Sometimes people say it's two types of violence. It's not. It's aggression, where people are just rude to you. You're seeing a lot of it right now because the political storms are so heated. So people are doing stuff after being cooped up as long as we've been cooped up, and then you put on all of the issues with, you've got the George Floyd situation, you've got the, now the rioting,
the COVID situation,
people in COVID, everybody's just the Tinder.
You can't have an opinion without being part of a gang. This is just what I think. I'm not here to fight you.
Exactly. You
so
cannot,
charged, man.
It's crazy. Stuff is being politicized that never should be politicized.
Yeah, can we just talk about this? You don't have to hate me.
And what's interesting is now it's a very challenging time for people, because now my training, people are calling me all the time going, so glad I had your training because, man, I so want to respond to this guy. I so want to do this, but I'm not going to do it because the problem is, okay, it's antisocial aggression. It's eminently avoidable. Now, your ego may get
they take a hit. Yeah,
you may do. I tell a story. I went to pick up my son when he was 10 years old. My older son is 25 now, and I was doing it. I was down in San Diego, and I was doing a course down there, and that's where my son lived. And he was going to go hang out with my brother for a day. My brother sails America's Cup, and at the end of the day, we were all going to go to lunch after I was done with my son. Or I'm sorry, to dinner after my seminar. So I pick him up at his mom's house, and I'm driving away, and nothing's happening. Guy coming down, barreling down as I pull out, almost hits us, and just keeps going. And he's all pissed at me because he thinks I deliberately did this to him, and I didn't.
Yeah.
So
he's convinced.
He hits a stoplight. I come up here. My son it's a passenger seat. This guy's over here.
Yeah.
He starts just giving it to me, boom. And at that time, I just got one of my first tattoos during that time. And he goes, "Oh yeah, I like you tattoo. You think I'd kick your ass?" Blah, blah,
and he's
blah,
just
blah.
pushing for buttons. He's trying to find the dang button. Yeah.
And I'm just like, "Hey, sir, sorry, I didn't realize that." My son's sitting here holding the magazine, and he's just looking back and forth at this. And I can't believe this guy's lost it so bad that he sees I have a little child in the car. I haven't been aggressive. I haven't been aggressive to him or anything. And I'm like, "Oh man, something's up." And we're stuck. I can't go. So anyways, he goes and he just takes off. And my son looks at me, "Dad, why didn't you get out of the car? You could have taken him and stuff like that." I go, "Connor," I go, you might be right. I said, there's a good chance if it had come to that, I could get over there and I could take care of the situation. I go, what if he had a gun? What if I was wrong? What if I did something to him? What if inadvertently I used violence and did that? I'd have to deal with that. And I said, what would that do to us? He goes, "But Dad, you're this guy." And he holds the magazine up. It was my first black belt cover.
Heck yeah.
And so
you're this guy.
Yeah. He goes, "You're this guy." He's a little kid. And it was funny. And that was my opening story for my seminar. I said, "Hey, if you don't think I wasn't raging inside and just wanting to go out and just, especially in front of my kid and do this," I said, I go, "It took every ounce of restraint for me not to take the bait." I said, "But I had a choice. And that's why, because you had a choice, and it was a painful choice, but I made the right choice because that wouldn't have passed the 3-day test." And when it was a 3-day test, for me, the 3-day test is this, and you have to do this prior to events like this happening. Say, okay, if you get triggered, and you're gonna respond to a certain event,
a stimulus.
3 days later, if you find yourself either 6 feet under or sitting in a jail cell, are you going to tell yourself you had no choice?
It was righteous, and I did the right thing.
I think people in general, because we are so immersed in this experience where we have instant gratification, they fall in love with the idea of falling in love, right? So we want the gateway, but we're not interested in the commitment long term. And in the military, we used to call this tactical patience. Like when I had a special forces detachment, my guys were very young, very motivated, and wanted to get work done. And I get that, but they didn't want to sit in the same positions for periods of time because they would get bored. And that's figuratively and even literally as my snipers sat in their hides. But what I want people to understand is, to find purpose, to go through this journey, which I think is the end state of happiness, right? It's not this pinnacle of success where you stand on a stage, on a mountaintop, at the top of your game. I think it's the process that I'm fascinated with, and it's the process that makes me happy. Then you'll realize that no one definitive thing is going to give you purpose. It's the journey. It's affecting people's lives on a micro scale. It's being involved in your own life and having confidence, like you said. So many people hold themselves in low esteem because we are our own worst enemies. We like looking at ourselves in the mirror and beating ourselves up. And that takes a lot of lessons learned. A lot of people don't learn that experience, and they fail, or they quit on themselves, or they commit suicide, or they have mental health issues. But it's like you said, it starts with you as an individual. It starts with building confidence through experiences. which don't just mean win. It means scaling at a time. Exactly. It's the resilience in it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, man. Yeah, that confidence comes from experience. Confidence is self-trust, and self-trust comes from experience. I love that. And arrogance is inaccurate confidence. Yeah, absolutely. Man. It's good stuff, brother. What would you say your mission is these days?
Oh man, I mean, I have multiple mission sets. I think the biggest one for me, the biggest mission for me is making sure people are ready for the inevitable. I think the disaster preparedness and catastrophe preparedness is my number one priority for whether it's my company or even talking and communicating to people, because I tell people like a characteristic of democracy and freedom is often complacency, and that doesn't have to be a bad thing. That just happens to be the circumstance in which you live in a pattern of life where you're not experiencing massive trauma or disaster. Right. And if you live in a third world country, that it's the opposite, because you're conditioned to catastrophe, and so you're desensitized to it. So there has to be a balance, and I think striking the balance is just being more having better aptitude and preparedness in mindset and understanding the neurological and physical processes, and just being present as opposed to being in your device or being immersed everywhere besides the moment. And I wake up every day with that kind of sense of purpose to constantly communicate in various forms of trying to get that across to people.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. It's like there's a central direction, but then you have these different mission sets that kind of are different places on the spectrum of executing on really helping people be prepared. Mine's security. So like everything I'm doing is protection centric. It's like, be willing, capable, prepared, be, teaching private security operators how to be more, better agents. So it's kind of, it's very interesting. Most people do one thing really good, and that's generally what I'm taught to do. But I find you to be that rare animal, man, that you're able to execute on a lot. And I think that's awesome, because I'm the same way. And I'm like, oh, well, maybe I'm not wrong. Like maybe this isn't crazy. Maybe we're just southpaw, That's good to go, man. What would you say your biggest takeaway is from Special Forces? Was from your time in the Special Forces?
Yeah, I think the biggest takeaway is the exposure to a culmination of many experiences in these austere and often traumatic environments. There's a neurological process that takes place, the same neurological process that takes place when you're lost in the woods, is the same experience that you get when you go camping, when you go to unfamiliar areas, when you travel abroad, where you have all these things taking place in your bloodstream chemically, and after that's done, you grow from that experience. You build this callus, you build this understanding of the world around you, and what I tell people is that's often good in training, that's often good in deliberate practice, but in special operations, I was forced to live that life. And so if you accumulate 15 years in special operations, going to war a whole bunch, being overseas a whole bunch, training in cycles a whole bunch, then that overall experience is kind of what led me to the point I am today. And I don't think I would be who I am without those experiences.
Awesome. Yeah. It's like maybe it built some type of a fluid intelligence, kind of to where you're inoculated to like the trauma, the changes, the Ouroboros of life, as Jordan Peterson would say, chaos, it's a different type of intelligence, that's good stuff. And then I guess for people that aren't familiar with you, if there are any on there, you want to just go into your tactical background a little bit for us?
Yeah, sure. So I started off, I grew up in a military family. My dad was in the Army. My uncle was in the Navy. So I was always playing tactical, whatever. So transitioning as a young kid and then going into the infantry at 17, it was an easy transition for me. I never felt like I was working. I did 4 years in the infantry. I was a young infantryman, did a whole bunch of stuff that I could do. Airborne school, Ranger school, all the basic infantry stuff. And then right after 9/11, I went to special operations. I became a Green Beret, and from the beginnings of the global war on terror until I got out of the military in 2016, I spent a lot of time overseas, a lot of time in different positions. I was a sniper, I was an assaulter, I was a breacher, I was a joint terminal air controller, a JTAC. I was a team sergeant, I was a free fall jump master. I was a sergeant major. I did a whole bunch of full spectrum things, from being the dude with the gun to being in charge of the dudes with guns to being in charge of a full company of dudes with guns. And then after that, I decided to do some contracting. So I contracted with the CIA and kind of did what you did in a hybrid sense, where I acted as a protection officer for the CIA, protecting case officers in wartime and non-permissive to semi-permissive environments. And it's known as a GRS, Global Response Staff Office. And had a lot of great experiences in the few years that I was there. Did about 6-7 rotations to various places all over the world. And then in 2016, I decided I was going to start this company and commit to it full time. I think my last trip was Pakistan, and then came back from that, and then committed to craft survival, my company, full time.
Sweet. Awesome, man. That's a ridiculous amount of that's an awesome wealth of experience, man. The first question I like to kick off everything with is, who's the man behind the work? Who are you at your core?
Yeah, man. So, my name is Trung Nguyen. I was an immigrant, fled a war-torn country in Vietnam. We escaped a communist regime that was oppressing their people. Obviously, you guys knew about the whole Vietnam War and whatnot, and just trying to find a better life for our family, because we knew at that time that Vietnam was not the place, with everything going on. So my mom had the courage, who I looked up to greatly and get inspiration from still to this day. Mm-hmm. She took me, my 2 older sisters, to the United States, and she literally left with $10 to her name. She didn't know anybody in the United States, and she said, "Let's go," because it's the American dream, man. Come over here, land of the free, whatever you're seeking, whatever you want to do in life, she bought into that, which is true. So I came here, and I grew up in the hood. I grew up in uptown of Chicago, around Sunnyside and Clarendon, which is totally freaking crazy, man. In the 90s.
War zone in itself.
No, yeah, man. Because when we get here, they didn't put us in a nice area. We lived in a Section 8 home. My mom was on food stamps because, right away, boom, she got there. We were placed there. She went to work that next week. So she was out there working. My sister was taking care of me. Yeah. And grew up wearing girl clothes. We lived back in the middle of like a war. The Latin Kings, the Vice Lords, 4 Corner Hustlers, and 2 blocks down north is the Gangster Disciples. And they were going at it, man.
These are all like black gangs.
Latino gangs is the Latin Kings, black gangs and GDs, the 4 Corner Hustlers were black gangs. So
did you have any, Asians to blend in with, or do you?
Dude, we were in a big mixing pot, of where I lived. So I had Hispanic friends, I had black friends. That's all I hung out with, So we were just, trying to you have to learn street smarts right away. Yeah, so man. I grew up in that, and hung out with the wrong crowd for a little bit because I was looking for a father figure, and I was easily influenced because I didn't know any better. And growing up doing that and meeting a police officer on the streets when I was playing ball, he came up to me, my friends, like, "Hey, I'm officer such and such. This is the area I patrol. If you ever need anything, let me know. Here's my business card." So to me, I was like, "Whoa, man, I don't even know this guy, right?" And he's helping me, and that kind of set me up for what I was planning to do in the future. Because that right there inspired me. This dude took his time out to say what's up to us. And I greatly appreciate that he did that. And I took inspiration like that. This is something I probably want to do later on, So I looked in the mirror and I told myself, because Byron, as much motivation as anybody else can spit, right? The David Goggins, the Jocko Willings, anybody, it's up to us to make the change, right? Yep. So I looked in the mirror and I told myself, I'm sick and tired of this life I'm living. I don't want to continually walk down this path and hang out with the wrong crowd and do like stupid stuff that eventually lead me nowhere. So I looked in the mirror, I got sick and tired. It's like, all right, you're going to get your shit together. Yeah. So I went to school, got good grades. And, after 9/11 kicked off, I was like, dude, I wanted to fight for my country. So I decided I was going to enlist and go to war. And I did a lot of research. I'm like, man, what unit can I get into the mix with as quickly as possible? And I ran across the Rangers, because my mom's friend's son was a first lieutenant who went to Ranger school. So she sent a VHS tape to my mom saying, hey, my son just graduated Ranger school. Check this out. And I popped in. I was like, oh my God, that's what I want to do.
Yes.
So right away, I did research, as much as I could through, the internet at that time. It wasn't as, the wealth of knowledge wasn't as much as it is now, but if you want something, if there's a will, there's a way. So I just started doing research on Army Rangers, read up on their lineage, read up on their history. I was like, yeah, this is a unit I would love to be a part of and try out for. So that's what I did. I didn't even tell my mom. My mom she's a typical Asian mom where she was like, oh man, I want you to be a doctor, a pharmacist, a lawyer, like, so what I did was, I was 18 at the time. I snuck away and I signed the contract without her permission. And a month prior to shipping out, I took her out to dinner, the family out to dinner. I sat her down and I was like, Mom, I want to tell you something. And she's like, what? Because I brought my girlfriend at the time. She's like, what? She's pregnant? I'm like, no.
Yeah, she's bracing for impact. She's like,
yeah. And I told her I enlisted to the military. And man, in the beginning, she didn't take it well. Obviously, because I'm her boy. She's like, she's bawling, crying, like, what you doing? You're gonna get yourself killed, blah blah blah. Yeah. But then, I educated her, let her know what's up. Mm-hmm. Then after that, I went and when I graduated and whatnot, she was very proud of what I did and still proud to tell her friends to this day, Mm-hmm. So long story short, went to the regiment, served in the regiment, went to war, served in the same platoon as Vincent Vargas, Matt Bass from Black Rifle Coffee. We all served in the same platoon, same company. It was crazy. Yeah, man. So first Alpha Company, first platoon, Bad Mothers.
Yeah.
So we did that. I did that for a little bit, and things happened that required me to come back home. So I didn't re-enlist. And at that time I realized, like, hey man, this is time for me to pursue my other dream, which is become a police officer, which I did. And I joined the police force, and I worked for 3 separate departments: an Illinois department, suburban, went to LAPD for 2 years. That was a lot of fun. I wanted to stay out there because I wanted to join LAPD SWAT. That was my dream. After I saw the movie SWAT, remember that movie? That thing cost, like, yeah, man, I would join freaking D team, So I went out there and
video.
Yeah, dude, it was awesome.
Real quick, man, this poster behind you, hard work is not, man. That I could hit that, man. I can start preaching on that. But what does that mean to you, man?
Dude, so this is obviously Muhammad Ali.
Yeah.
And I respect the man so much. He has swag, he has the work ethic, he has everything. People to me, when you look at that, it's like hard work is not enough. What it means to me is like, hey man, you could try to be here and grind it day in, day out, but you need more than that, man. It's not just, putting in the hours, man. You got to put in like you have to everything, your heart, your soul, your everything. You can't just, because the guy who can show up to work and do a little bit of overtime compared to you doing overtime, showing up to work, doing more on the side, hustling, always constantly thinking, always thinking about the next step, developing and just like, it's like a chess game. So to me, hard work, yeah, man, it's not enough. You want to be successful. You want to be the top 1%. You want to be with the best. You better fucking give everything you got. Everything.
Dude, yeah, man.
Everything. Put it all on the line every single fucking time, man, regardless. Yeah. So I look at that every day in my office. It reminds me, like, dude, this is nothing. You gotta put more. You gotta put more. You gotta put more. So yeah, that's
good.
Something I look at. Yep.
Real quick and dirty. I retired from the Army 24 years ago. as an Army Ranger, West Point psychology professor, professor of military science. My first book on killing, 500,000 copies sold worldwide, translated into 7 languages. It's Google Scholar says it's been cited over 3,000 times in scholarly research, which is really pretty amazing. And in essence, it talks about the resistance to killing in healthy people, and it lays a foundation for us to understand here. People point some horrible crime and say, "Oh, that proves mankind is a killer." No, that's 1 in a million. You know, out of all the people in America today, 1/3 of a billion people, that's the one you heard about. Well, what about the other 330 million people who didn't kill today? You know, I mean, think about this. In a life of provocation, divorce, infidelity, layoff, traffic accidents, in a lifetime of provocation, less than 1 in 1,000 people will even seriously attempt to take a human life. Explain that.
Wow. Yeah.
So inside most healthy members of our species is this kind of hardwired resistance against violence against our own kind, especially killing violence. When it comes down to it, we smash each other in the most harmless way. We don't go for the eyes. We don't go for the throat. We pound at each other in a relatively harmless way. The males of with antlers and horns, they fight each other head to head. They're not trying to kill. If they were killing each other, then their territorial and mating battles, their species would go away. You know, against the other species, they go to the side, they cut, they gore. Piranhas sink their teeth in anything hits the water except other piranha. They fight each other. So mankind has this resistance, and there are those who don't have that resistance. And some of them are sheepdogs and some of them are wolves, depending on where they come from. But the thing to understand is that we can overcome that resistance. We're doing that with the video games with our kids in a not good way. We're doing that with some of the movies and TV shows we inflict on our children, and that's not good. And so my second book is on combat, and it really is the nuts and bolts of what we want our protectors to have. You know, how could we have had 500 stinking years of gunpowder combat and not let people know that the shots get muted in combat, auditory exclusion, you know?
Right.
Well, both these books are Marine Corps Commandant's required reading list after 20 years of war. On combat, last I heard, is issued in the DEA Academy, issued in the Marshals Academy. And it's a book every protector, if you could, I'd want you to pick this one up first to understand the nuts and bolts of what's going on out there. The whole sheep, the wolf, and the sheepdog thing came out of this book. So we did the Sheepdog Kids book.
Outstanding.
It's been fun, and it's deep. I mean, it's really deep, and the kids get it. But it's mostly about military and law enforcement sheepdogs, you know, and I do a lot of civilian work and a lot of work with the NRA and armed citizens. I said, Dave, what about all of us civilian sheepdogs? So we wrote the book, Why Mommy Carries a Gun. Yeah.
Outstanding. I love it. That's outstanding.
If anybody carries a gun, mom or dad, grandma, grandpa, if you're going to carry a gun, here's what we want the kids to know. You know, find a gun, stop, don't touch, get an adult, 4 years for gun safety laws, you know, and the whole gun thing. I co-authored a book with Glenn Beck, New York Times bestseller, Control. It's about the best thing out there in gun control. It says, you know, Glenn Beck and Lieutenant Colonel Dave Grossman. I think I wrote the book than he did. He gets his name on the front. But he's a heck of a good guy. And this is the best book on the topic. You know, I've got all kinds of entries in peer-reviewed scholarly journals and stuff, but some books is where it's really at. And Assassination Generation is talking about what's happening to our kids, what the media's doing. My 2 most recent books, one is The Bulletproof Marriage, 90-day devotional, Sheepdog and Spouse. And we're really touching lives. It's been out for less than 2 years, closing out 400 5-star reviews. But in the end, my most recent book is the most important. You know, you and I share our faith background.
Absolutely.
And it's on spiritual combat, 30 missions for victorious warfare.
Wow.
You know, in the end, we're in a battle against forces of evil.
Yes.
And if you've been in this job long, you've looked in the eyes of evil.
Oh, yeah.
A force for good on your side, it can be hard. So for those that know Grossman stuff, you know, the next step is to being a better warrior is this on spiritual combat. And that's kind of me and my background. But here's where it all comes together.
Yes, sir.
Things are bad right now. Byron, things are crazy bad.
Oh, yeah.
The thing to understand is the murder rate is being held down by medical technology. So people try to tell us how bad the problem is in terms of the murder rate without allowing for the docs saving ever more lives. It's like imagine some economist comparing minimum wage over time without allowing for inflation.
Yes. Okay.
Well, we've got one good solid data point. A UMass Harvard study in a leading peer-reviewed journal in the late 90s, it tells us between the 1960s and the 1990s, medical technology cut the murder rate to a third or a quarter would otherwise be. That is, compare murders in the 60s to the 90s, you got to multiply by a factor of 4. You know, if we were comparing minimum wage between the 90s, we'd have to multiply by pretty, you know, so
adjust for,
the leaps and bounds of life-saving technology since the 1990s is astounding. Tourniquets alone have made a revolution in life-saving. Everybody should be carrying a tourniquet. And
absolutely.
About a tourniquet, you save a crime victim's life, you prevented a murder. So I was called to the White House as the president's roundtable on violent video games, and then the vice president brought me out, Vice President Pence, and I told him, you know, we have inflation-adjusted dollars. We need medically adjusted murders. And he said, well, what about the aggravated assault rate? And that's a good question.
Yeah, that was my next question. Violent crimes and all that.
It's too easy to fudge that data. Where do you draw that magic line between egg assault and simple assault? Every cop will tell you, we'll make the egg assault rate say whatever you want it to say. We'll just shift that whole magic line, you know? Dead is dead. Murder is good data for medical technology. Now, on the battlefield, we found out that number one preventable loss of life was bleeding out from extremities. We gave everybody a tourniquet, taught them how to use it, and boom, prevented the number one preventable loss of life on the battlefield. Absolutely. But the same thing true in our streets. So every cop's got a tourniquet, every EMS, every fire. If just 20 to 30 people a day across our nation of a third of a billion people, just 20 to 30 people a day slap on a tourniquet, save a crime victim's life, we cut the murder rate in half.
Wow.
So I train fire and EMS in one of our nation's largest cities. They say, Dave, I guarantee you, 20 to 30 times a day in our city alone, we slap on a tourniquet and save a crime victim's life. So it's much, much worse than it looks. To compare the murders between the 60s and today, we got to multiply by a factor of about 8.
Wow.
So with that said now, in 2020, the homicide rate exploded like nothing we have ever seen before.
Really? Wow. I know it was high in the 80s, and it dipped a little bit.
Yeah, but that's
and then now it's just gone.
Medical technology, it just kept on going up every year.
Wow.
The only difference is how much did it go up? So in 2020, now the official government report will come out in a couple of months. But every year we have good sampling data that hits it on the nose. And we know in 2020, homicides were up 37%, annual increase. Now, the biggest annual increase we've ever seen was 12.5% one time in the 1960s.
Okay.
So 3 times greater than we've ever seen. No. Allow for medical technology, multiplied by a factor of about 8.
Yeah.
20 times worse. 2020 was 20 times worse than anything we have ever seen. And 2021 is even worse. 2021 is just compound interest, icing on the cake, above and beyond 2020. So what that means to us, first and foremost, wrap your mind around it. 2020 was 20 times worse than anything we have ever seen in the increase in violence. Wow. And 2021 is, all the data tells us so far, is going to be even worse. So
I think it's so important for people to understand that, because it happens. You don't know it. You're at your house, you're going to your job, and you can easily live in a bubble until all of a sudden you're faced with a situation. So that's why this conversation's boom, right? This conversation's so important.
Well, you're not paranoid. It really is bad. And you really do need to be ready. And you really need to listen to what guys like you are telling people.
Thank you.
We need to take our skills. Now, I am my family's Secret Service. Right. If I got my clothes on, I got a gun on. Yes, and And I'm 65 years old. It's my prayer that I can do this for another 20 years. I grew up in the martial arts. I grew up in the Army. But I'm too old for an ass whooping. I go straight to the gun, you know?
Yeah.
In court, I can say, look, I got a 64-year-old handicapped wife. I'm a 65-year-old, 30% disabled veteran. You know, if it goes to hand,
of course.
I go straight to the gun, baby. Game over, right? But I am my family's Secret Service. And we need to be able to rise to this challenge. On top of that, we have a terrorist threat of enormous magnitude. Now, we know, everybody tells us, the current administration, that when we left Afghanistan, the terrorist threat went way up.
Right.
The Russians were in Afghanistan for 10 years. When the Russians left, they followed them straight home, a part of Russia called Chechnya. Gave them pure hell.
Oh, yeah.
And they're going to follow us home. So the answer to this threat, well, we've known the answer. The Israeli model is armed, trained people everywhere.
Exactly. I love it. I love it. When I go to Israel, everyone's ready. Something happens, they're like white blood cells.
Israel. We were Israel. You know, the French Indian War, the Revolutionary War. We are the people of the gun. Right. We have armed ourselves. We've carved it into the DNA of our nation. And so what I tell you is rise to the challenge. You know, and I tell people, you know, have a hobby that reinforces your survival skills: hunting, competitive shooting, airsoft, and martial arts.
So good.
Don't waste your time. We don't have time to waste. And I like to make fun of golfers. I tell them, piss on golf. You know, real Americans go to the range. You know, golfing is t-ball for adults, you know.
I call shooting golf for men. Don't hate me, guys, but I do.
Yes, and the golf course is a willful and deliberate misuse of a perfectly good rifle range, you know. So
right, exactly, man. Well, that's outstanding.
And start hitting the range, hit the gym, hit the dojo, and prepare. And we got to let people know right up front, first and foremost, how desperately bad the situation is.
Guys like us that were raised like this is, once you understand, and an advantage a lot of aggressors have on normal people, and even cops that are doing the work that aren't actually training, is they understand violence, so they can achieve a higher level of violence more quickly, and it catches a lot of cats off guard.
Right, element of surprise.
The other day, yeah, man, it was like 3 cops, 1 dude. You could tell that one dude was a gangbanger, and he understood violence. He got out the car and just started dropping dudes, man. And the cops were like, and I was like, your badge ain't always going to protect you.
Right.
You know, that's what I tried to say during the tactical protection review. I was like, you wrote a blank check when you laced up your shoes this morning that you might have to cash at any minute. So if you're doing this as a profession, you got to make sure you're formidable.
Right. You got to know the game. And it's like, you know, the difference between living and dying is knowing and not knowing. And part of the factor is that when you get into this, I don't want to say it's a game, but when you get into this profession, man, you gotta, you know, realize your weaknesses and how you have to develop and better your skill factor. Like you said, the X factor. Because if you don't got it, you don't got it. And what happens is a lot of people in law enforcement, they figure once they pop that badge on, man, you're invincible. Yeah, but that's not the case. That's not the case. I mean, you know, like 95% of my career was spent undercover. So I had to when I had to go into the hood, you know, doing my thing. I'm like this, playing clothes, man. So, you know, they either had to respect you for your abilities and what you was going to get on with, or they was going to take you out the game immediately. Yeah. You know what I mean? Wow. And, you know, it's a mindset. It's a lifestyle, you know what I mean? That you have to live by. You know, you can't just, right? You can't just, you know, all of a sudden, you know, I'm like, you got guys, I know guys that are just proficient with the firearm. I mean, they can shoot the nuts off a fly. I mean, there's some badass dudes, right? But man, the moment they get engaged in confrontation, they freeze up. It's a whole nother thing. Right. It's a whole nother game. And, you know, in our martial arts, we had a thing called the 5 S's. It was strength, stamina, skill, speed, but the most important, surprise. Because see, they don't know what you know, in the sense that, because if you have to have in your mindset already, like I teach a class, you know, it's what the training day, like yours, training day, right? But it's a matter of it's 3 seconds, you're already dead. If you don't know when you get on the scene with something within those first 3 seconds, how you're going to respond and react to whatever the situation is, and you're going to be able to take it to that next level, you're already dead. Because that guy that you come across with has no distinction between life and death.
Right.
You know what I mean?
No governor. There's no thing. There's no timeouts. There's no thing to
there's
stop.
No bell. There's nobody in the ring.
Okay. Yeah, man. No time. Yeah. No PC. All that stuff's out the window.
Absolutely, man. So, it's part of, in the training. So when getting into the police world, I had to identify, of course, when I came in, I'm a rookie. So I got to go through the program. I got to, you got to go, A, B, C, D, you got to go through the process. But in the course of that process, you start to see deficiencies of others. I mean, you're like, oh, this guy's like officer safety risk. I can't have him for backup because, I may run the risk of getting shot, things of that nature. So you have to like almost place your mind in a position of tactical aggression.
Right.
See, that's what happens by taking that tactical aggression. You meet the threat before the threat meets you.
Yep. This is a Marine Corps principle, violence of action. Even if you get ambushed, you achieve such a high level of violence so quickly that you actually attack the attacker and you can turn the tide. You take the fight to the enemy, get in their OODA loop, as we all talk about.
Right. Absolutely. So, to me, in getting into law enforcement, after I finished my, the initial training and stuff, I was thrust right into undercover. So part of doing that, I had to, growing up on the street, I was able to distinguish, I knew the bad guys from the gate, you know what I mean? Yeah. The problem is that the ones that you really can't realize that are the bad guys, because they don't look like a thug, they're not just like a thug, but their mannerisms and the way they carry themselves, present the notion that, okay, you may be dealing with somebody who's not the average thug per se. Yeah. So you have to be prepared to deal with that in any given situation.
Yeah. The sleepers.
Yeah, the sleepers, exactly. So, especially in the protective world, as you do now, I mean, you're constantly, eyeballing, running, scanning, advancing, because you got to know what the unexpected is going to be, because your whole primary objective is to protect the principal.
Right. And with that having been said, this is why in the Protector Symposium Library, if you guys haven't, go to protectornation.com, check out our library. We have an instructor, Yusuf Badu. He teaches law enforcement agencies, all the other agencies, behavioral profiling, right? So you got your little palette in your mind of what you think a bad guy looks like. But if you understand how to profile behavior, understand what someone's subconscious is telling you about their intentions and what they're doing and their intent, you can really, really get ahead of the game, no matter what they look like. You know what I'm saying? You might see me and Paul and you might be like, oh, these guys are thugs. He's got tattoos and Paul's got chains on. And then you're going to be sitting there and you're going to be like, not even realizing like, yo, you're probably in the safest room you've been in all month, because me and Paul are having lunch 2 stalls over. And the guy that you don't expect, that you didn't think was anything, like the dude, like the white guy that just looks like, the Heidi Ho neighbor guy, walks in and starts shooting the place up because he's having a bad day. But if you were able to read his nervous behavior and notice he has too many clothes on for what time of day it is, and you see the bulge in his waist and you start seeing that stuff, then that puts you ahead of game, increasing your protection quotient, your PQ. Download that content, make your family, you and your family watch it, protectorsymposium.com. Message. Just want to drop that in there because that's what we're talking about.
It's situational awareness, brother. Situational awareness. So in the course of the police world, getting in, I got shot early on in the game. And so I was taken out, and not permanently, but I got taken out. I got shot in my leg, man, and it shattered my femur, and I had to get a rod in my leg. So they basically told me, hey, you're going to retire out, disability. I'm only 4 years in the business, man. They want to just shut me off. No more martial arts. And, I'm like thinking to myself, man, I just got in. This is what I want to do. This is what I love. I mean, this is what I want to do, So I was pretty depressed. I prayed a lot on it. And, God gave me the ability to take it to another step, man. And he allowed me to serve him in this capacity, because I really didn't know what my purpose was in being a cop, which was actually to serve God and to be able to reach out to those, protect those who can't protect themselves, things of that nature, deal with these murderers, these very, very dangerous individuals out there that nobody wants to deal with. And, I was, given an honor to serve God in chasing these guys down, finding them and putting them where they needed to be, whether it be, down under or back in jail, whatever the case may be, you know what I mean? But, God put on that daily armor of God, went out there and did my job. He gave me the foresight, to do that. And, everybody, especially, not just, people in the EP industry, but as in law enforcement. You guys, we as men and women are given this position of authority to do this job. So if you can take those concepts and that mentality, ground yourself, not only mind, body, but spirit, you're going to be able to accomplish these tasks at hand. Because you can't be the best at what you do if you're out of elements. And out of the element, if you don't have that triangular, you know what I mean? You're not going to be. So you can have the best fighter, the best man. He doesn't, all that and a bag of chips. But if you don't have all the rest of the stuff, you know what I mean? The mind, the spirituality, you're not going to be grounded. You're going to get caught up in the emotional aspect of the situation. And that's when it gets dangerous. That's when the tunnel vision kicks in, and then you get lost in the tunnel.
You've been around the block. You've been in it, man. How many officer involved shootings have you been in?
I'd say about 9.
About 9. So just so you guys know, my man, he's talking from experience. You know what I'm saying?
This real one-on-one. This isn't the one when you have 5 cops go on a car, guy inside the car with a gun, and everybody starts unloading on the car. Yeah. And I'm talking about this is, one-on-one gun battles type of stuff. You know what I mean? Like running gun battles, the whole 9 yards. That's just discharging my weapon in necessary defense for myself and that of another. But just in like guys pulling guns on me, trying to rob me because I'm undercover, and I can go on and on. Knife fights, hatchet fights. It just on and on. If I was to have been involved in every officer involved shooting of somebody that had a gun, they'd probably have a cemetery put in my honor. You know what I'm saying? Because that's how serious it is. When you're out there in the game, you have to understand the rules of the street, because they're different from the rules back at the apartment, back in home. You know what I mean? There's no rules. That's the rules. There's no rules.
Yo, what do you think of go ahead.
So in keeping that in mind, like when you're going out there, man, it's just you, your partner, maybe sometimes just yourself, and you better pray to God when you get on that radio and you calling for backup, somebody comes. Like one of my shootouts that I got in, I was a running gun battle with one of my partners. We interrupted a robbery during the San Francisco Giants game, and dude shoots. He robs this chick. Guy comes out from the car. Hey, what's going on? Dude comes up. Boom! Dude drops on the ground. We're up top on a hill looking down the surveillance. I'm like, oh shit! Just going down. I roll hot. You know what I'm saying? You got to be ahead of the game. You can't. You're gonna have the thing in your holster and you're gonna be driving around. No, man. Those 2 seconds for you to come down, snap, pull it out. That's your life.
Right.
You gotta be down and ready to roll. I'm rolling. I'm hitting the street, going down. We're gonna chase the cat down, and the boy starts ripping off his mask. I'm like, oh shit! We just arrested this kid, this gangbanger, the last week for dope. He sees up. He lets a round off at the car. We spin out, a little J turn. He dips around the corner. Getaway car's waiting. So, and this is traffic going to the game. So you can imagine going to like the Dodgers game, and it's just full.
Gridlock,
I said, you know what? I'm gonna tip the car. I'm gonna jump out, kind of like a movie, I guess. Jump out and just engage.
Yeah.
Never happens, right? So I come out. We go to just about to come out. They pop out the ride, both windows. Outside, driver's side. Bam, 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 bam. They're firing. I shoot out the car. Left hand, limp wrist, of course. Jams. I turn top rack. Come back up. We start firing. Pop, 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 pop. And then the car drives away. I'm like, what? You know what I mean?
It's like we got to keep going.
I said, fuck it, get in the car, man, let's go. We started, my partner's, let him go. We're going to catch him later. Nah, this dude's going to kill somebody again. It ain't going to be on our watch.
Man.
So we fly down the street, right turn. Next thing we're driving straight into the project. It was called Double Rock Dodge City, man. It's like one way in and one way out. And the other way, if you're coming out, it's probably in a body bag, right? So we're going inside here. We come in, turn. We're going to dead end. They jump out the station wagon. Car's still moving. So as soon as they start coming, I come up first. I see the dude, the driver. He's wanted for murder, right? From another, we recognize. I said, pop, 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 2 times in the vest, and he keeps going. He just disappears.
He's wearing armor.
He's wearing armor, right? Okay. So then the other cats are running around. So I pop out the second handgun and did like one of like a skeet, I guess you want to call it. Kind of ran with him and pow, and then boom, he drops down. We go to get him, hold him down, and then about 100 plus people start coming out of the project. All the crazy folks, you can see guns, you can hear the shotguns going. I'm like, get back. I'm like 2 guns up in the air and stuff. My partner, he's a big brother, man. He's black and Filipino, man. He used to play for the Bengals and stuff, right? So I'm trying to hide behind him and stuff. You know what I mean? Kind of like your side, right? If you was with me, I'd probably be hiding behind you. So we're trying to get through, and we're calling for backup. This is the point I'm making about backup. The backup was just like right around the corner, but nobody knows where the hell we are because we're doing a buy. We're doing controlled narcotic buys. They finally come. Cavalry finally arrives 2 minutes later, which felt like an hour.
They start
coming. Yeah, they're trying to grab it. They're trying to lynch the guy. My partner's just throwing dudes off, man, like rag dolls. We finally drag him back to the car. Units come. We secure the area, and then we get back. You know, we get back to the office. They brought the dude to the hospital. He survived though. That one guy. We ended up catching the guy with the body armor. He had dents up in his ribs and stuff. We caught him like maybe a week later. But the other dude, he ended up doing like almost 20 years. I think he just got out actually about 2 years ago. Face a little deformed and stuff, so I don't think he's too happy. But
that's the game. What for you, for anyone listening that this resonates with, like tools for climbing out of that darkness and learning how to find a new normal that's palatable enough for you not to die inside and take your life?
First off,
which we don't know that it even works yet. Yeah, I mean, because we still, you know.
First off, brutal honesty. Yeah, brutal honesty is the first one. Not only being able to be brutally honest yourself, but also to be able to digest that honesty when it's being, put upon you.
Yeah.
A lot of people like to hide behind honesty. Like, I'm an honest guy. I'm not into bullshit. And they use that as a defensive mechanism, as a shield, something to hide behind, I'm not Jocko Willink. I'm not going to wake up at 10 in the morning, fucking 4 in the morning and do kettlebells and fucking do all this shit. I'm not that. I'm not a cross country runner. I do shoot. I've shot a lot. I'm not an instructor to shoot, so I'm not going to be that guy going out there to shoot every day early. And but I am somebody that has some weird experiences. I think the main part is that the main thing that gets sold to us as protectors or as warriors or as anything is that you're going to get better after every injury sustained. That's a lie. Some injuries don't heal, so you have to learn how to live with them. That's a lie. Another lie is the one we sometimes tell ourselves as far as emulation. We will see a Jocko Willink. We'll see a high level guy, individual or athlete, and we see what they show us, and we lie to ourselves in the aspect of that guy has everything that guy has everything going for him. He has everything together. I just need to do what he's doing, and I'll be there. And it's a lie. We all have different cards that we were dealt with when we were born, and we have to kind of play those cards. So number one, I think the first thing is just to be brutally honest with what we have, what we're capable of, and be realistic as far as what we can do with our current situation. But the first thing, the first thing is you have to want to do it, And a lot of us don't get there because we don't let go of the bottle, we don't let go of the joint, or we don't let go of the whatever our substance is, or other people, because some of us are addicted to that too.
Good stuff, dude. No, I love it, man. Bop, 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 bop. Okay, so brutal honesty. I did a presentation on masculinity last week for an awesome event called the Roger Up event. Opening masculine trait or trait of high quality human beings was vulnerability is strength. Vulnerability is actually strength. It's beautiful. It's authentic. It resonates, especially in a world with so much fake crap. Awesome, man. Well, I think they got a lot of value out of that. This is the real stuff. Adds the real deal. Let's lean into this little commercial I saw in your, not commercial. I know in you, it's got a lot of layers, a little bit of depth here. I just want to play this real quick so they can get a little taste of what you guys are up to over there.
Me llaman llaman calle, pisando baldosa, la revoltosa y tan perdida. Me llaman calle, calle de noche, calle de día. Me llaman calle, hoy tan cansada, hoy tan vacía. Como maquinita por la gran ciudad. Me llaman calle y me subo a tu coche. Me llaman calle de mala alegría. Calle dolida, calle cansada.
Yo, bruh. So like it looked mad field crafty. You know, I don't know what you can even say about it on here, man. But what's going down in this video? What am I looking at?
It's not though. It's not field crafty. It's Hong Kong protesters. It is Ukrainians filling styrofoam into bottles that they then fill with gasoline. It is kids that want to tag a sweet spot somewhere in LA that then can learn how to open up a padlock so they can get to it. I grew up in a place where good and bad, or the good guys and the bad guys, are really not. It's not as easily defined. In the same regard, my teachers weren't always as easily defined as this is the instructor and this isn't your instructor. I grew up tagging in Mexico, Tijuana specifically, and played in a few bands, skateboarded. The street gave me a lot of lessons, and among these lessons were that anybody can be a teacher at any time. From sitting down with some of the Hong Kong protesters and seeing what they decided to carry with them during those times, advising them on some of the ways you can weaponize everyday objects and cause some disruption with them. The video you just saw is showcasing one of the hoodies we sell. It has a bunch of concealment pockets to it, and he was concealing everything from a candy bar to a burner phone. A lot of these things may seem like some things out of a Jason Bourne movie, or things that are relegated to the realities of somebody working some sort of clandestine operation somewhere, or a protector somewhere that can't have access to firearms because of the legalities of the area they're in. Whatever assumptions you have about that, about the nature of the material that you just saw, it is very much taken from people from every walk of life. People that have a desperate need to be armed, people that have a desperate need to be prepared for a bad situation, and people that are not allowed to have with them the means to defend themselves. In a big way, a lot of what I have shared with the world, and a lot of the mindset specifically that I share with this world through my social media and through some of the classes that I do, and through some of the training that I do for the federal government, is that of being armed always. Not specifically just having weapons with you all the time, but having the mindset and ability to arm yourself anywhere you are. It is my opinion that the ability to defend yourself and that of your family, and having the means to do so, should be an internationally protected human right.
Yes, absolutely.
Out of all the things that I've said on some of the platforms that I've been on, that probably is one of the more controversial things that I've said. Living in a country that talks about gun registration and making guns illegal. I come from Mexico, and there's places in Mexico that would they would sell everything they had for a gun to defend themselves. So I've been on both sides of that issue. People get alarmed when I show somebody how to arm yourself with everyday objects around you. They're like, why would you show that to somebody, Ed? Well, I always come back with the response that if this is news or new to you, you need to get out more. And then you need to realize that whatever enemy you perceive to be out there that might want to do you harm, this is something that he already knows, or she.
Yeah. And then
make that assumption first.
Yeah. And it's probably implemented once or twice.
Yeah. I mean, it is when I talk about weaponology, number one, you're the weapon.
You're the weapon.
You're the weapon. And when I say you're the weapon, I don't mean to say it in a cliche thing like, I'm the weapon. All of these things are accessories. No, like you are the most dangerous species on the planet for your own species. Like you want to talk about a predator? It's us, right?
Yep.
I'm not going to be worried about a mountain lion coming into my house at night, So once you realize this, other animals in the wild kingdom will prepare specifically for their predator.
Mm-hmm.
Zebras hide amongst themselves. They'll have stripes and they'll hide in a crowd. Gazelles will focus on speed and kicks. What do we focus on as humans? For our predators. If we focus on becoming dangerous for our predators, we focus on being smarter than they are. We focus on cardio, outrun them, maybe. We focus on having a weapon and or a superior weapon if we can. And if we can't, to have a weapon of opportunity that we can produce in the moment where it has an advantage over whatever's in the environment. We start thinking about things in this way. And a lot of people freak out with this way of thinking because they say it's predatory. It is. It is because we, have a canines, our eyes are forward. They're not to the sides of our heads like a cow.
You won't walk away from a course with Shiv Works and with Craig Douglas Wondering thinking that you know something. You're going to feel and you're going to understand that you know something. You're going to have mental reference points that are going to stick with you, and that I think is really valuable to walk away with. Yeah, we learned some cool moves. And then I went into Murder Alley against my buddy with the headgear on and actually got to feel what it was really like to try to put this into perspective and in a safe environment, but against, what was it? Non-permissive,
non-consensual and competitive.
Non-consensual and competitive environment. I love it, man.
Right. Both parties are trying to win. There are not role players. It is opposed.
Yes.
The coursework by design is a course of instruction and an experience. The course of instruction is a course of instruction, but the experience is that's what resonates, impacts, and makes the motor learning. That's what makes it stick and resonate. And our job is to create these little rooms in your head where you can sit by yourself and contemplate your experience. We facilitate the experience. You decide what to do with it. And most people overwhelmingly rise after the experience and make a decision, a conscious decision to get better. We have people that get fitter, lose weight. They're kind of, again, secondary and tertiary benefits.
Yeah.
Besides just the motor learning and the specifics of solving that niche problem, there are a lot of again, second and third order effects that come along with a positive, properly, because it may not necessarily be positive, a properly facilitated experience.
100%. And experiential information is superior. I can tell you something till you're blue in your face. If you lived something, that's real hard to uproot, right? No, I love it, man. And that's valuable. So for this symposium, we're going to be leaning into the one-man, single-man movement. Would you maybe just give them kind of a synopsis of what that actual course really is?
Sure. Well, first of all, we need to make a distinction on what we're actually doing. Okay. And I know just because it's language most people understand, and language gives you a visual of what you're doing, right? So it's listed as one man CQB. It's not CQB. It's not.
Mm-hmm.
This module is what I refer to as armed movement in structures. And it's larger coursework that's been condensed down into the time that we have available. And what it's designed to do is to teach an average person, whether they are operating under color of authority or not, to be able to contextually think through and navigate a movement with a gun through interior space. So, and there's several reasons that I make this distinction in the movement. First of all, when I teach this content, and I've taught this content quite a bit in closed coursework. I've done this for the IC, I've done this for JSOC. Invariably, especially in the intelligence community, you'll have people from a whole bunch of different male backgrounds, right? From the Marine Corps, from the Army, from the Navy. And the most contentious arguments are always about CQB.
Always.
So the way I start the discussion, generally before we get into the instruction, is I let them know, hey guys, I know everybody here is a stellar commando from whatever branch of the service that you served in, and your CQB was probably the best at the time, and it served you well. That's not what we're doing.
Right.
And to show you that it's not what we're doing, we don't even use the language CQB to describe what it is. This is not close quarters battle. This is armed movement in structures. What is an armed movement in a structure? An armed movement in a structure may be the average person waking up in the middle of the night. They don't know why they've been woke up. They just wake up ill at ease. And boom, they hear a crash or a noise that's not just average house noise.
Yeah.
Right? It's something anomalous. They get more ill at ease, so much so that they choose to retrieve a pistol from the nightstand and move with that pistol through their home to figure out what's going on.
Right.
Now, that's an example of an armed movement in the structure. Here's another armed movement in the structure. Public space where we hear shots. We're with a family member. We're armed. We have no desire to engage that person. We want to navigate that space and get ourselves and our family out of that space. That would also be an armed movement in a structure. So that's why I make the distinction, right, between that and CQB. CQB is military language for something very specific. There's some very meta crossover between CQB and what I refer to as armed movement structures and what I'm teaching. But it's very, very, very broad, and the specifics of how we do this by ourselves for problems that are not necessarily aggressively taking real estate from an opposing adversary. Okay. Right. How we express these movement modalities and what we're actually trying to accomplish, and the execution of them is very, very different. Okay. And there's some words that commonly are used in CQB, for example, that don't even apply to what I call an armed movement structure. Here's a word you hear in CQB a lot: flow.
Yeah.
All right.
Oh yeah.
Flow usually connotes or denotes how people move together. They're spacing from each other, or spacing off walls, their depth, things like that. But flow usually describes how people work with each other. Well, with what I'm teaching, there is no one to work. So there is no flow.
Yeah.
So that's an example of something that's not really relevant to our movement structures. And if you want to further describe flow and contrast flow, one of the things that people notice immediately is that the left and right limits of singleton movement compared to team movement are even more extreme. So when you're by yourself compared to a team-based environment, when it's time to move slow, you move way slower than you would in a team environment. And when it's time to move fast, you move way faster than you would in a team environment. So the quality of movement is far more extreme and staccato in creep, rush, creep, rush, creep. Where you initiate movement from and where you cease movement at, right? The level of precision, especially so you don't overpenetrate and open up more exposure, is way more than a team environment, because there aren't other people to hold angles. So you don't have the opportunity of coverage. A structure, one of the things in the PowerPoint so we'll do a PowerPoint, we'll do a very brief diagram, and then we'll start moving. So we go from what these principles are, what I have distilled solo interior movement principles into. We will express them one-dimensionally in what we call diagram hell, which is a diagram that I draw on the board, and I have everybody come up and describe how they kind of move through that, applying the principles that they've just been exposed to in PowerPoint. And then we go from 1D to 3D, where we're actually moving around inside of 3D space. And then we start adding opposition and complexity. Mm-hmm. So that's the idea behind it. It's crawl, walk, run. And again, it's going to be considerably faster, because this is a seminar 4-hour format. What I'm doing is condensing essentially what is
48 hours, 72.
I'm condensing. Well, the coursework is 24 hours over 2 full days. So like day one's a 14-hour day.
Boom, when it comes to the technology you use to protect your home, there's nothing better than Deep Sentinel, AI-driven, human-monitored technology that will keep you and your family safe for the same price you're paying for whatever Ring doorbell system you have. Check out Deep Sentinel. It's such an honor to join forces with these guys. They should be in every single house in the world. Get real-time Overwatch for you and your loved one. And for 10% off, depending on when you're watching this, don't forget to use code Byron at checkout. Boom! Quick shout out to our sponsor, Staccato. My first pistol sponsor. I've been sponsored by a lot of companies, right, over the years. But when it comes to pistol, that's my bread and butter. Pistol is something I believe in. I'm a competitive shooter. We're shooting anywhere from, 800 rounds a month type of thing, right? So Staccato, being what I believe, is one of, if not the most complete handguns you can put in your hand. It's got every component that a handgun could have, should have. They're actually extremely dependable now that they've made some changes, and these things are straight up tack drivers. If you're looking for a pistol that will do as much of the work for you as a piece of hardware can, obviously you have to have the marksmanship and all the different things, but different guns perform at different levels. And I want to say that Staccato is one of, by far, for sure, take it from a competitive shooter, we're shooting the highest volumes of rounds constantly right now. Not used to have a background guy, but like right now, when you go shoot, you're going to see certain brands. Staccato is one of, if not the highest performing firearm that is both CCW, duty ready, and also competitive ready. So I want to give them a shout out. If you guys are looking for a good handgun to build your skills on top of, go check out Staccato. Much love and respect. Yo, if you enjoyed that episode and you like learning things like that, I want to encourage you to go to Protector Nation, build a profile, get in the Civilian Protector Project. This is where you can learn from these guys, live Zoom calls. You can see the full modules that you just watched, and you can become part of a community. It's the first social media platform for protectors where we can get to know each other, we can network, we can learn together. We do live Zoom calls with different SMEs every single month. There's so much packed in there. I'm in there. It's an honor, it's a privilege. Looking forward to working together to make the world a safer place by helping good people to become more willing, capable, and prepared. Protector Nation, Civilian Protector Project, let's go.